What Biofractal is doing is using gene expression data, we call it transcriptomics data, and artificial intelligence for different applications in animal nutrition and health. So the first application is to help companies develop better products for nutrition and health. Those are products like probiotics or enzymes or phytogenics, amino acids, etc. In a way that these companies can understand how those products are working inside the animal and how that can be translated into outcomes of benefit like performance outcomes, productivity, or health of the animals. And the other application is being able to companies that are producing animal protein to understand what is limiting the potential productivity and health of their animals in the field.
Okay. Hello, Luis. Hello, Maria. Thank you for joining in. I'm very excited to have you here on Scouted by Gravy. And right away, again, I've read a lot about Biofractal in the past few days. But before we start, I just want to ask, how are you guys doing? And is there anything exciting going on in Biofractal recently happened that, you'd like to start our conversation with?
Things are going very well. Like we are making a lot of progress in the market. We're growing. We have been working mainly with chickens and pigs. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but we have been very focused in R&D in the last 5 years. Now we are really going from R&D to commercial applications in the field in animal production. For us, that's very exciting. That means that we're starting to work with different kind of customers, offering a different kind of value, and that's very exciting, right? So is it the place where we start to shape the offering for those customers to offer value at scale commercially.
Yeah, and I think that's really exciting from an impact perspective. If you think about global protein production and being actually able to work directly in the field with the people who are producing the animals, improving efficiency, welfare, sustainability of animal production, I think that's quite exciting from a global impact perspective.
I think I related with 100% because when I was going through the website, actually when I was looking for solution in animal protein, and that is when we came across Biofractal. So I was like, it was very interesting to see how AI and genetic information is being used to, I think, to solve the fundamental issue of scaling up animal protein. And I really liked how you guys are approaching it. But again, I have read about it, but our audience might not know. So maybe I think we can start with very brief summary of what is it that Biofractal is doing, what kind of solution are you working on, something that you can, that our audience, which is like totally unaware of it, they can understand.
Yeah, so basically what Biofractal is doing is using gene expression data, we call it transcriptomics data, and artificial intelligence for different applications in animal nutrition and health. So the first application is to help companies develop better products for nutrition and health. Those are products like probiotics or enzymes or phytogenics, amino acids, etc. In a way that these companies can understand how those products are working inside the animal and how that can be translated into outcomes of benefit like performance outcomes, productivity, or health of the animals. And the other application is being able to companies that are producing animal protein to understand what is limiting the potential productivity and health of their animals in the field. So we do that by collecting samples, analyzing those samples, the messenger RNA from those samples, and that helps us to understand and to identify what specific functions of the animal are limiting either his productivity or his resilience to disease, for example. So we can recommend interventions such as changes in diet formulation or addition of feed additives, for example, or changes in feed additives or changes in management to be able to capture those benefits in terms of productivity and health of the animals. That's basically what we do. There are other opportunities that are coming from the same technology, for example, in pets or humans that we are looking into in the future. But at the moment, we are quite focused in farm animals, that is chickens, pigs, dairy cattle, and fish.
Yeah, and we're really kind of following this trend of, bringing the service closer to the user and having more better data, better decision-making power in the hands of the people who are making the day-to-day decisions, big decisions about how to improve health, how to improve welfare and productivity, all of these things on a day-to-day basis, and having good, strong diagnostic tools in their hands to be able to dig deeper and understand more about what's happening within the physiology of their animals and why animals are responding in different ways and how that changes through the production cycle.
I think I mean, I totally understand how important this is, and I think the scale of the impact is also huge, because the animal health market is in itself is very huge, and I can see like the potential of your solution like spanning in multiple industries, not just in animal healthcare as well. But so now my question is like more towards the role of Biofractal in specific areas, and specifically, like, before even I talk about that, I'd like to understand like how, like, role of Luis and Maria, like how are you both collaborating in Biofractal, and basically what are you guys doing, and basically how are you guys working together?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. We are still a small company, so we are 6 people, and we are a mix of expertise, kind of going from animal science, kind of the knowledge of the market in animal production, animal nutrition and health, to things like data science, bioinformatics, and software development. My background is more on the innovation side, kind of developing products for animal nutrition and health, but very market focused, right? So kind of facing the market and understanding the problems of customers and trying to find solutions for them. So I tend to play in that intersection between the market need, the development of a business, and the technology. So my role in the company is in that intersection. Maria will tell you more about her role, which is kind of very complementary, more on the business marketing side. That you go ahead, Maria.
Yeah, thanks, Luis. Yeah, so we have kind of similar backgrounds in ways. We both come from animal science. I have a PhD in animal nutrition, much like Luis. I've worked a lot in the feed additive business over the years on the innovation side, but then more recently, more at that translation of how do you translate good science into something that's useful in the market. So I worked in marketing roles and really more directly with customers and how to make an impact on product development, but also on services. So really bringing that into the company and really directing sort of where are we going in the future, and working together on kind of crafting that vision of what's going to make an impact. And then what is it going to take, all of those steps that really create a service that's very usable in the field, easy to use, good customer experience, delivers value in a very affordable way for the value that it creates. So really kind of bringing our expertise together. We're quite complementary. We have a little bit of overlap, but also quite complementary. We've also worked together in the past, so we have a long history of collaboration, which also helps, I think, to have a good partnership in our day to day.
Thank you for such a brief description. It's very interesting to know that you have like worked together in the past as well, and I really like how Luis carries a like very specific set of expertise, and just like any founder, of course, understanding both customer side and technology side of things. And I see how, Maria, you, even if you have like such a deep technical background, and you're helping on towards more the business side of things and expansion side of things. Another surprise for me was like Biofractal is just a team of 6 people, and the impact that there is to make is like such huge. So it's surprising to hear that this such a small team is like working on such a big problem. So again, very, very happy to hear this. I think my next line of question is going to be more towards understanding the underlying technology that is helping us, basically helping Biofractal to solve these animal health issues, and basically enable farms and enable nutritionists and veterinarians to solve these challenges. So how does this platform works? I mean, both on the data collection side and of course on the processing side. So maybe we can pick it one by one, but really it will help me and my audience understand, really how this solution is being worked on. And basically, yeah, so just like to understand both side of things.
Yeah, maybe the thing to start is we decided by design to focus in messenger RNA from the host, from the animal. We could have selected other things, metabolites or proteins or microbiome, but we very specifically decided to focus on this. And the reason why we are working with gene expression is because by understanding the changes on gene expression, we can understand how the animal is adapting to the environment based on the genetics that the animal has, right? So how it's adapting to stress, to the diet, to disease, to everything else that is happening in the life of the animal in that particular environment. And that gives us a lot of strength to be able to first understand what is limiting the health of the animal and the performance of the animal or the growth of the animal, and how to solve it. So basically, the way it works is we have a large database. We have built it to be scalable. So we can gather data that's publicly available, data from our own experiments, data from our customers' experiments, data from the field from our customers, and all put it in the same format, in the same database, and then develop pipelines to be able to process those data from sequences to insights. A lot of that is kind of, let's say, more traditional bioinformatics and statistical methods, but a big part of that is AI. And that includes also different types of AI, from something quite straightforward like a machine learning prediction to something a lot more complicated like a foundational model of RNA that is helping us to understand the data. So we're trying to use those tools in the specific areas where it can provide value, with the main objective to at the end be able to give the customer an insight that is directly tied to value. For example, if we see that there is a limitation on branched chain amino acids in the diet of an animal because we're measuring that, then being able to say how that is affecting the productivity of the animal or the health of the animal very specifically. Those are the type of pipelines that we are developing. And the other part is to make it presented in a way that is very intuitive to the customers. So what we have been doing is converting those complex signatures of gene expression and pathway activation into simple, standardized indices of health that can help the customer understand, okay, if I have these animals compared to the best animals in my system, what is wrong with them in their immune function or in the metabolism of nutrients or in the digestion of nutrients, and being able to put together an intervention, solve the problem, and see how that is changing in a way that can easily understand. I'm not sure, Maria, if you have something else to add.
Yeah, I think like the real value in what we do is in that interpretation of a lot of information. So from every single sample that we take from an animal, we're getting 20,000 data points. So it's a vast amount of information. But the question is, what does that mean? And how can you construct that into a way that's actually easy for people to understand? The people who are making the decisions, the vets, the nutritionists, people in live production. What we do is convert that into, Luis mentioned the indices. So we have like a gut health index for chickens. We've got a metabolic efficiency index for pigs. So it's really about focused on the endpoint is around production efficiency, right? So we are interested in how the health of the gut is changing in relation to performance. So it's all very much focused on a value point that is valuable to the producer, so FCR or body weight or mortality, those kind of things. And how are these physiological changes impacting that? So then that really gives you a great anchor in something that is very useful from a production perspective to be able to manipulate through different intervention strategies, or just even benchmark your farms compared to each other to understand what are those key differences between a high performance farm and that kind of lower performing farm that you've got some challenges with, but it's been very difficult to sort of uncover what are driving those challenges and then how to intervene and rectify them to improve your performance. So it gives a very usable approach that is based on very strong science, but then kind of distilled into something that's very usable. So I think that's really where the value is of what we do.
I think it's such a great explanation, and I think I get. So let me summarize just so I understand. So what I see is that, of course, any kind of, I think, genomic data software or wherever you have to like deal with such a huge data set, standardization and multiple sources ends up being a challenge for existing solutions. And I think that's where Biofractal is coming into the picture, that not only you are collecting data from multiple sources and as well as directly from the animals, but you're also able to put it together in a standardized way that really helps these service medical providers or nutritionists to really understand and see the right things they need to come up with solutions that can really improve the health of animals or productivity of the animals. I hope I was able to summarize it correctly, but really I see the real value, because with most of the AI systems these days, which are like using lots of data, that is the challenge that's coming up, that they lack the data, they lack the real data that can really provide value, or they don't have enough sources to really gather this data from and really give something actionable to the people who need it. So, I mean, I see how important and how impactful your solution is. So I think then very curious question that I have is like, how is this data being used in real life scenarios? So maybe you can give us some example of any recent collaboration. I'm not sure if you're able to share exact example, but maybe just for my reference, like how is this data being used in real world scenario and what kind of impact do you have seen? Maybe some numbers if that helps.
Yeah. So maybe I'll give you one example on the R&D side and one example on the production side.
Perfect.
So on the R&D side, let's say There is a company that is developing feed additives for animal production for chickens to be able to improve their intestinal health and their performance. They have this very well-known product that is very recognized in the market, doing very well in one market, not doing very well in other market because the effects are not as they expected in terms of the improvements in productivity. They have a hypothesis of what the difference is between the two markets. We run an experiment, we compare the two diets are representative from each one of those markets, and then we find what the constraints in the physiology of the animal are to be able to express the potential of the product in that particular type of diet in that market. They use that information to come up with new solutions, reformulation of the product in a way they can capture the potential of the product in that market and grow their sales. Yeah, that would be an example on the R&D side. More on the production side is, okay, I have a large company that is producing chickens. I have 3 different feed mills in different parts of the country where I work in. I'm having a lot of problems in one of those areas. I don't know why. What's happening? So then we would go and collect samples from the parts of the system that are doing well versus the part of the system that is not doing very well. Try to standardize it, the same age of the animals at the same time, and understand what the physiological drivers are in those places where they are having problems with health and productivity, or maybe the resilience of the animals to disease. Then we can identify there is a problem, let's say, with intestinal integrity and oxidative stress that might be related to changes in diet of their facilities, and then we can recommend an intervention of changes in formulation to, let's say, improve the vitamin E level of the diet, include a butyric acid in the formulation so you can deal with some of those problems that are very specific to that place, so you can improve the productivity of that specific part of the system.
Yeah, and I think some of the challenges, that people see in the field is a lot of these problems, they're hidden, they're not visible, so they don't really know. It's not like a clinical infection of some kind of pathogen that is more easier for a veterinarian to diagnose. These are subclinical, so you can't really see them, but they show up in the performance. So you're losing efficiency. So they're measuring performance for every flock that goes through or every group of pigs that go through. So they know they're benchmarking performance so they can see when things aren't going well, but they just have no indication of what are the drivers of those difference in 5 points of FCR. So what we try to do is really dig down into the detail and help them identify what are those key areas. Because there's lots of things, there's many, if you talk to any nutritionist, there's many topic areas of interest right now, and it could be fiber, enzymes, it could be health products, many different, but where do you put your time, your money, and your investment? They're very busy people. So really narrowing the funnel and the focus is super helpful, not just from a financial investment perspective, but just for a time. One of the biggest challenges for animal production these days is labor. Labor is the biggest challenge. People don't have time. So they really need to know where to put the focus to have the biggest impact. And that's what we can help them with.
I think it makes perfect sense. And what you said is like, it makes sense. But from my perspective, I feel a lot of, as you said, a lot of these problems are not really visible and they're hidden. So similar to, I think, in a lot of farm situations, a lot of problems show up later and they're only noticed once the problem is already here and once you start seeing its impact. So is it also the situation where your data is able to help predict such kind of issues before they happen, so that, farm owners can take actions, or veterinarians or feed providers can take action before the problem shows up and it really ends up affecting your output or your farm's output? So is that also something which I'm guessing it might be, because since AI is involved and you're dealing with such a large data? So just want to hear your side on this.
It depends a little bit on the application. So there are different animal systems. There are some of the animal life stages, for example, where that kind of prediction is a lot more feasible and customers are willing to invest to be able to make a prediction. For example, in dairy cows, large animals, a lot of investment in each animals is very long cycles of production. They want to protect the health of the cow long term. It makes a lot of sense to, for example, take samples to be able to predict how the cow is going to do in the next lactation, or the same with sows in pigs. Some systems like broiler chickens, where it's very short time, it could be 35 days or something like that, it's very short time to be able to make a decision that is going to affect the same flock. It's more like, what changes can I make in the formulation of the entire system that is going to take the whole system in the positive trajectory in terms of productivity and health. How can I help those farms that are maybe lagging behind in terms of performance or health, or they are very variable because they have a lot of challenges? How can I help those to reduce the variability in performance? Those are different questions, and in some of them, the predictive is a lot more important than the diagnosis. In some areas, is more having a diagnosis so I can take action and then track the constant improvement of the system.
Makes sense. I think you were right. Actually, in case of chickens, the decision need to be made very fast. And of course, even a small mistake, it's end up affecting. It spreads very quickly, so it makes perfect sense that in case of like cattle agriculture, you have like more runway to do these kind of predictions. It makes sense. So, Luis, again, I think most of my questions about how platform is working, what kind of impact it is making, they are clear. But something now talking to you, it makes me curious about the like other application of your technology. For example, there's this trend of insect agriculture as well, and that insect agriculture is solving the same protein problem that Biofractal is also addressing, but situations is also very different there, and I think it's like even faster than how the chicken agriculture works. So have you like considered, I'm not sure if this is like on the roadmap or if this is something that you are also curious, just out of my curiosity, like how does Biofractal system can assist in, let's say, insect nutrition or insect agriculture side of things, or is that like not currently on the line and you haven't really thought about it?
To be honest, I mean, there is potential to do that, but we are a lot more interested in high value applications. I think health of pets versus humans in the long term. What we are seeing is like the way our bodies work compared to a chicken or a pig is not that different. I mean, it's different, but it's not that different. And a lot of these technologies translate very nicely from one species to the other. That's what we are seeing with the species that we work with, right? So a lot of them, whatever we develop for one species is going to work in other species with some changes because of the specificities. But we see that there is a lot of potential to go to those kind of applications that are much higher value. For example, I mean, I haven't seen anybody solving the problem of precision nutrition in humans. I have my mom that didn't know what, she's 70, struggling with some aspects of her health. The advice she's getting from doctors or nutritionists is not as precise as it should be, right? There is a lot of potential to improve there, and I think with what we're doing, we could potentially help humans to make better decisions about their nutrition. But it's going to be a process to get there. But these technologies could have direct application in pets or humans.
Makes sense. Do you share the same sentiment, Maria, or like do you also like to add some other perspective?
Yeah, like I'm particularly interested, I have to say, in the human side, because I think there's, if we think about the interests of the current, younger generations is very much on health and fitness, maybe much more so than it has been in the past. And I think people are really looking for the ability to make better decisions around their day-to-day nutrition. But of course, understanding where you are now and what you need is quite difficult. If I had a tool or a service like we're creating for myself, I would use it because I'm interested. I want to know how I can optimize my health myself, not relying necessarily on having to go seek all of the external advice, but can I understand more about my own health and then sort of take the responsibility a little bit in my own hand. And that's maybe because I'm now a nutritionist and I feel like I can do that.
Exactly.
But I think there's more people like me who want to be able to make more informed decisions around themselves, not just kind of the general population information, but more specifically about themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and just to share this, Maria and I actually made the decision to start using it on ourselves very soon. We're going to use the metabolic efficiency index that we have developed for pigs. We're going to use it on ourselves for a while. And I mean, we can talk in a year and see how things
So
are
wait
going.
for that paper when we publish.
So you already have like humans to trial on. So that's very great.
Friends and family.
And I think there are more people who are like such more conscious, like Maria said, that like this trend is now growing. More people wants to take control of their health and on such precise level. And Louis, as you mentioned, so you're right. I haven't really seen anybody else working on precision nutrition for humans. But I think the field is first prioritizing precision healthcare for humans, and which has been there in, I think, in cancer research and in diabetic care. So there, I think these kind of applications are picking up already, where you're coming up with very specific diagnostic for very specific person based on their genetics. So I think that could also be something as a starting point. Not sure, again, you guys are the experts, so
But
you
I guess
can.
our interest is much more in that prevention piece, like the early identification, as opposed to like when you talk about precision healthcare, you're already addressing a problem, in a
You're
60-year-old
already
that
in the
started
hospital.
in their 20s, you know what I mean? And if you had the opportunity to assess your health from an earlier standpoint, you could really change the trajectory of your overall health. I think that's a really exciting avenue for humanity going forward, to be able to actually set yourself on a better direction for longevity. And that's such a topical area at the moment in terms of, how do we have a really good lifespan all the way to the last 10 years of our life that are actually enjoyable, not sort of relegated to a care home and not being able to move, So I think there's so much opportunity and interest now, I think, really shifting in that direction.
Exactly, and it's very similar to what we see like in the farm animals that we work with. We are actually uncovering those hidden problems that animals have that are being manifested as productivity. In humans, those hidden problems are due to my habits or my nutrition or how I don't sleep or the kind of fast foods I
Exercise.
eat or lack of exercise. And you cannot measure it until it's too late. When I see it as a problem in my health, that where I have to go to the doctor because I have real problem. It's very similar. We would like to actually uncover it and see it and measure it long before that, kind of on a month by month basis, so you can take action and improve what you can improve before something bad actually happens.
I think, yeah, it makes perfect sense. And you're right. I think prevention is always better than cure, as it's like a very old saying. So Louis, I think next questions are more towards like integration, how easy it is for Biofractal's system to be like implemented on farm scale, or for it's to be adopted by veterinarians and food. So just want to get that view. Is there a learning curve involved? Is there a like lots of data needs to be first integrated before system is ready to be used? Or basically, how does that process looks like?
Yeah. Well, I think the R&D side is a little bit different, and what we are finding with the customers that we're working with is that our platform has a lot of complementarity with them, because not many customers actually have databases where they can store their data, manage their data, see their data. So for them, it's actually coming in to use all the capabilities of our platform to manage their data and see the results of their projects and be able to build a database of their products. On the farm side, is totally different, and we are in the process of actually developing a lot more software to be able to integrate to our systems and make it very easy for them to have the whole journey within the platform, right? So that goes from being able to order a kit online, track the kits, register the kits, send the samples, get the data, take decisions, track what happens with my animals after those decisions are made. But it also includes integration, for example, with the system that they already have, to be able to collect performance data digitally on farms and other sources of information having, right? So that's going to be a process for us to develop all those integrations. We are still at the start of that integration, but it's going to be very exciting in the next few years to integrate with those critical systems, because at the end, what creates a lot of value is to integrate this kind of data with other sources of data they are gathering now. And sometimes they don't know what to do with, or how to capture the value from them. For example, all the performance data they are gathering from the field, a lot of that is not being used to the extent that it could use, and that's going to be developing very fast in the next few years.
Yeah, and that's a really exciting prospect. So there is a real shift towards bringing technology into agriculture and precision. So, people are measuring the quality of the air, they're measuring performance, they're measuring all kinds of different things, sound, all those kind of data, lots and lots of data. But I think still the limitation is, how do I understand it? And then what do I do with it? So we can help with that and really anchor it in the animal's physiology and bring it all together. But as we said, it's going to be a stepwise process to bring these systems together and understand how to, create value from that integration. But I think that's definitely where this whole area is going. And I think that really sort of is an exciting prospect for the future, to be able to tie it all together and really strengthen the insights that you're getting. Like, obviously, the more data you have from different places is really going to pinpoint your understanding of what's really happening in all of these different kind of conditions, be it from one season to the next, one different source of grain to the next, all of the, because there's lots of variation, lots of variables all of the time. So the more information we have about these things, the much better insights and the higher quality of decision making will come with that.
I think it makes perfect sense. So will I be right to say if that the perfect customer for Biofractal will be an already technologically advanced farm setting or like or a facility, I would say, or are you seeing like adoption on smaller scale as well? So just want to get this out of the way as well. Just want to understand basically who do you think is like the perfect customer for you?
The perfect customers on the animal production side are companies that have, let's say, enough scale and are vertically integrated because they can capture actually the benefits and profitability at the end, right? So a company that is kind of not vertically integrated, for example, you're only producing feed or only raising the animals, cannot benefit to the full extent of the improvements on productivity that you can have and doesn't have the control, for example, on the feed, on the whole system to be able to capture those benefits. That's on one side. And on the other side is generally those companies that are more advanced technologically, very open-minded, innovative, first movers. That's the perfect customer for us because they already have systems in place. They are very interested in precision nutrition. They want to differentiate by actually capturing these hidden sources of value that nobody else is capturing. And technology is very important for that. So that would be the perfect customer for us.
Yeah, and oftentimes they have, they've invested in some of this other, tech that's out there. So they're capturing, they have other data streams coming in, and they want to start integration already, and as Louis says, they see opportunity in places that other people don't see. So that's obviously a competitive edge for them going forward. So yeah, that's and we've met those customers already. So we're quite confident that they exist. So that's that's nice to know.
Yes, I think it's a huge industry. Of course, there are like lots of companies which are very tech savvy, and especially in these times, even I think on small scale, companies want to integrate as much technology as possible because not only it gives them more control, it helps them scale these kind of operation, and as I shared earlier, do these kind of predictive analysis beforehand, and then like have more control over the profitability of their animals and their overall the productivity of the farm. Makes perfect sense. And I think with that, Luis and Maria, I think that was like the last few questions I had. Just one more thing, and this is like purely out of my personal curiosity. I try to get this from like all the founders and all the people who are involved in such companies. So you have like huge technical background, and you come from a like very niche space, and even now you are operating in a very specific niche space that is like combining traditional animal farming with like such high tech of data and AI. And this is not an area where you have a lot to learn from others. So most of the things you might be figuring out on your own as well. So like during all this, navigating all these challenges and during this journey, I'm sure like any founder, like any person involved in such a niche space, you might also go through this thought that maybe this is not going to work, or maybe you might run into a bottleneck, maybe you might not scale to the level you want to. So of course those kind of fears are always there. So just for my personal curiosity, and I try to learn from people I talk to, so how do you handle such kind of questions that lingers in your head, that keeps you up at night? So basically what goes in your head,
Well, I think
making
a
you
Very
lot
good
of that
question.
is, I mean, I think over the years, especially if you're working with an industry, you start to understand the core principles of how things work and whether a technology has potential or doesn't have potential. I mean, at least as a hunch, as an instinct. I think that part is very important, right? So, I mean, I have the instinct that it's going to work. I know that the principles are there for it to work, and I have a path to be able to test it, both in terms of the technology and in terms of the market. And in every step, there will be detractors. There will be people that say, no, that's never going to work, and never even look at it. And there will be people who will see the vision and will contribute. I think both voices are important, and you need to get both voices all the time, but just make the adjustments to continue going in the direction that the vision dictates. And at the end, if you find out that your hypotheses were wrong, well, you close that part and you move somewhere else. But in general, at least in this particular area, we have been quite lucky to be able to show that a lot of the hypotheses that we had are true. Well, some of them were wrong, but we have been adjusting, and overall the vision stays quite similar to when we started. So that's really nice to see.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. We've been navigating this road, and it's not a straight road, but I think what hasn't changed is kind of the direction. Like we know what direction we're going and how we're getting there. That like we pivot a lot, I have to say, on different things, target customers, the actual value we're delivering, how are we going to translate all of those things. And of course it's all based on, interaction with our customers and with experts, and we're constantly sort of looking for that feedback, and that's informing like our day-to-day decision making. And that's really, really critical, I think, to always be listening to what the industry is telling you. And we actively look for that in all different directions. And I think that's been so useful in kind of framing what we're doing. So it's a constant evolution. And of course, there are days where you kind of hit a wall and okay, well, I thought that was going to be where we're going, but it's not. But then you step back and have a bit of a think and a talk and a chat, and decide on the next move, and off you go again. So it's never like hitting the wall flat. It's always sort of kind of maybe pausing, rethinking, reevaluating, and then going again on a certain direction. And yeah, I think so far that's been working pretty good for us. We've been making some really good progress, but I think the key is listening to the market. What is the market telling us? And understanding where people are in this journey, because not everybody is seeing the world like we see it. And I guess we like to think we're innovative and we're forward thinking, and understanding that not everybody is there. And some people are fully there, and some people are on their way, and people travel there at different speeds. But I think, not to be put off by the people who are naturally just kind of not going to be those first movers, but maybe are going to be more in the following, and understanding that that's their perspective based on their experience and so on, and getting a lot of information from different people. I think that's really, really helpful. So yeah, it's a process.
Yeah, I think I see, and thank you for giving me such an amazing answer for this, because again, as I said, I have a lot to learn from a lot of people like you who are like in this game, and that's why like I asked this question. But I see your approach to this. Your approach, again, it makes perfect sense that you're coming from a scientific background, so you also approach these kind of problems from a very scientific nature, that you listen to both sides and then you just evaluate what really is working, and then you take the decision accordingly. It's really impressive to see two scientific minds at work.
With
And
a
with that,
healthy dose of pragmatism, I think, as well, right? I think that's kind of a core of what we do. We're quite pragmatic. If something's working, great. If it's not, we're not going to spend too much time on it. We're not going to be married to a particular kind of direction. We're really going to be agile in terms of how we approach it.
yeah, I think a lot to learn for me, and I think I'm actually throughout this conversation, I really enjoyed talking to you guys. That was like the end of our talk. But really, I got to learn a lot about animal healthcare, as well as how this data and scientific research and AI is helping solve this. And really, I'm really impressed with what Biofractal is doing. I really see the potential. I'm on the side of the people who see the potential, and and who knows that this is an important problem to be solved. And what you are doing is like going in right directions. Really, thank you for joining in today. I really enjoyed my conversation. So yeah.
Thank you for
Thank you
having
very
us.
much.
I really enjoyed it. Thanks.
Yes, thanks a lot.